Good afternoon, CPAC. You know, the President of the United States last addressed this gathering 8 years ago. Do the math. It was a different president then. As he sat in the Oval Office preparing for that speech, he came across a phrase that confused him. So he asked, "What is this movement you keep talking about in the speech?" The speechwriter, stunned, responded, "Well, the conservative movement. You know, the one started back in the 60s when the conservative groups first took root." That apparently didn't sit well with the president. "Let me tell you something," he said. "I whooped Gary Bauer's ass in 2000, so take all that movement stuff out of there. There is no movement." I wish I'd known that story 8 years before his presidency rather than 8 years after his presidency. Is it any wonder that a lot of us began to doubt the Republican Party during that presidency? A man who ran for office claiming to be a conservative, he didn't govern as a conservative. He oversaw the largest spending increase since Lyndon Johnson's Great Society. And when big banks got in trouble, his solution was to force Congress to hand over $700 billion taxpayer dollars that we didn't have. And worse, he laid the groundwork for Barack Obama, who within 1 month of taking office, called President Bush's $700 billion bailout and raised it by $87 billion, again with borrowed money. It was 7 years ago last week, in response to that $787 billion so-called stimulus package that had worked its way through Congress, that the modern Tea Party movement was born. Now, we're just regular people, nothing special, but we do share something in common. We love our country, and we love what makes our country special, the Constitution and the rights it protects. The rights that come from our Creator and not from government. Our freedom, we're fighting to defend it against the liberals who want to fundamentally transform it. And many of us are angry and upset at our government because we see Washington insiders making deals that grow the government and increase the national debt, and they have no regard for the impact their deals have on our lives. We want to make a difference. I'll bet that motivates a lot of you too. And when Rick Santelli ranted against the stimulus bill on the floor of the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, we were ready. The day after that rant, 24 strangers got on a conference call to talk about what we could do to take up action based on Rick Santelli's call to have a tea party like our founding fathers. Within a week, we held protests in cities all across this country, and by April 15th, we'd organized more than 850 of them, engaging Americans who were fed up with our government, and we haven't looked back since. Let me ask you a question. How many of you here today are angry and upset with the federal government? I'm upset. I'm upset because those in Washington never seem to hear us. I helped organize the March on Washington, D.C. in 2009. I emceed that event to over 1.5 million people, and I kept saying, "Washington, can you hear us now?" Business as usual continued. It's like those in D.C., they're tone deaf to us, who they're supposed to be representing. Now, I'm upset that when we organized ourselves into a Tea Party movement and we worked in 2010 to remove from office all those liberals who voted for Obamacare, we gave Republicans control of the House. But Republicans didn't cut spending either. Instead, they made corrupt deals and they increased the debt. And I'm upset because when we began working with others who were just as angry as we were to protest the bailouts and to express ourselves about our government, the government turned and targeted us with the most feared agency at its disposal, the IRS. They tried to take our free speech from us, and they silenced much of our efforts. And frankly, we still feel the effects of that today. And I'm upset that even after Lois Lerner revealed the IRS had deliberately targeted American citizens just for using our First Amendment rights, the freedom of speech, the freedom of association, she's not been held accountable. No one has held her accountable, and it was almost 3 years ago. I'm upset and I'm angry. I know I'm not the only one who feels that way. Do you feel this way too? Let me give you some good news. To paraphrase Mark Twain, the rumors of the Tea Party's death are greatly exaggerated. Stop and think about the top 3 contenders for the Republican nomination for president. All of them, to varying degrees, are running as Tea Party candidates. You have Marco Rubio, who ran for the Senate in 2010 explicitly on Tea Party values. Our values helped elect him. Unfortunately, once he got to Washington, he allowed himself to be used by the other side on an issue of great importance to us. He's been trying to make up for that ever since. Ted Cruz ran for the Senate in 2012. Explicitly as a Tea Party candidate. Our people helped elect him, and once he was in office, Ted Cruz championed the Tea Party values. He fought the establishment, and he stayed true to his principles, and he stayed true to our principles and his promises. And Donald Trump, he took a look at the political environment, and when he decided to run for president, and he said to himself, this Tea Party movement is good for me. So he took on one of the biggest issues that drives the Tea Party today, and he did his best to make it his own. And since then, I've heard him say over and over again, I love the Tea Party. And he's done his best to cloak himself in the garb of the Tea Party, taking on the establishment. Now think about that for just a moment. 7 years ago, the Tea Party movement did not exist. Today, Republican candidates running for president know that if they want to win the nomination, they have to appear, at the very least, to be Tea Party. In 7 years' time, that's not bad. It's not bad at all. Not dead yet. But we need to speak some hard truths this morning, because one of these candidates I just talked about is not Tea Party at all. I know Donald Trump says that he loves the Tea Party, but that's not what it takes to be Tea Party. If you want to be Tea Party, you have to love our country, and you have to love our Constitution, and you have to be willing to fight for them above your own interests. And you have to put freedom above your own interest. Now, let me ask you a question. Have you ever heard Donald Trump talk about the Tea Party? I haven't. I've got serious questions about his fidelity to the document that Tea Partiers revere. For instance, Donald Trump recently said that if he got to be president, he would, and I quote, open up the libel laws to make it easier for him to sue newspapers that wrote unkind things about him. The right to speak freely without fear of reprisal is enshrined in our Constitution. That's what makes America different from every other country on the face of the earth. We're here, we can speak our mind, even criticize our government, and even criticize our political leaders without fear of reprisal. We are protected by our Constitution to do so. And when I hear a candidate say he wants to mess with our rights to free speech, I fear for our Constitution and our country. Because that's not Tea Party. In fact, the Tea Party fought tooth and nail to keep our free speech. But that's not the only reason I know Donald Trump isn't what he says he is. A look at his history and his background raise very serious questions. Donald Trump stole a line from Ronald Reagan. He says he wants to make America great again. Well, I'm going to borrow a line from Ronald Reagan. Trust but verify. Here's what I verified Many of Donald Trump's critics say he's inconsistent. He was for universal health care before he was against it. He once supported the biggest tax increase in history, and now he says he wants to cut taxes. He was pro-choice before he became pro-life. He donated to Democrats before he donated to Republicans. He funded the establishment candidates against the Tea Party before he said he loved the Tea Party. Yes, he's inconsistent if you look at all the issues that he flip-flops on. But if you look at his motivation for taking those positions, you'll see that, in fact, there is a remarkable consistency. It's the consistency of serving his own interests. Because you can always count on this. On any given issue, at any given time, Donald Trump will take the position that serves his interests as he perceives it at that time. Are you still not sure? Listen up. When a little old lady, mind you, a widow, refused to sell her property to him so he could knock down her house for a parking garage next to his casinos, Donald Trump tried to use the government to take her property away from her. The property right, the right to use and own your property as you see fit, is one of the essential elements of limited government. Anyone who does not understand and defend the property right has no business serving in elected office, let alone the presidency. Using the government to force a property owner to give up her property that she doesn't want to sell, that is not Tea Party. And in 2013, when so many of us were fighting to stop the Gang of Eight amnesty bill, Trump issued statements saying he was for amnesty. For the last 8 months, he's been saying he's against amnesty and that he wants to build a wall. But in the last few days, we've heard he may have told the New York Times something entirely different. We don't know because it's off the record and he won't release the tape. And last night, he said he's softening his position on immigration. We don't even know where he stands on this issue today. That's not Tea Party. A few years back, Donald Trump decided to trade his reputation as a real estate tycoon and make money by marketing a series of real estate seminars. So he opened up what he called a university bearing his name, and apparently took a lot of people for a lot of money. So much so that he's now defending not one, not two, but 3 separate lawsuits on the matter that have 5,000 plaintiffs. Scamming people out of their hard-earned money? Definitely not Tea Party. In each of those cases, Donald Trump was serving his own interests as he perceived them at the time. Donald Trump is about love of himself. But the Tea Party is about love of country and the love of our Constitution. I know you're angry, and I know you're upset too. And I know that Donald Trump is tapping into that anger. It's a smart campaign strategy because he makes it seem like he shares our frustration, and it's like he's fighting on our behalf. And when he says he wants to make America great again, we cheer because we all believe America is great, and we appreciate what sounds like love of country on his part. It's a seductive pitch, and I have several friends and colleagues who support him even as I speak. Here's what I think. Donald Trump loves himself first, last, and everywhere in between. He loves himself more than our country. He loves himself more than the Constitution. He doesn't love you or me, and he doesn't love the Tea Party. Donald Trump has no business thinking he's Tea Party. And every Tea Party person who truly loves the Constitution should take that into account when casting their vote. And why should you vote for Donald Trump anyway? If you're a Tea Party, you've got a much better candidate to support. Ted Cruz. I know, and I've worked with Ted Cruz ever since he came to the Senate. And I know him as a man of his word, a man of honor, a man of integrity, a man who keeps his promises. And let me tell you, in Washington, that makes him a rare man. A very, very rare man. When it was time to fight the implementation of Obamacare, or fight the increase in the debt ceiling, or work to block amnesty for illegal immigrants, Ted Cruz led the charge. On issue after issue, Ted Cruz stood strong for our Constitution. He's kept his promises, and he won't back down. I'm proud Tea Party Patriot Citizens Fund endorsed Ted Cruz for president. But it's not just about a man, though. It's about our principles. Our candidate really is the Constitution. We support Ted Cruz because he reveres and defends the Constitution. I'm proud to know that any time we're in a battle against Washington insiders, I can always count on Ted Cruz to be on the right side, to be right by our side. And we have an historic opportunity this year. We have the most conservative candidate since Ronald Reagan running for president. I've never even been able to vote for a candidate who's conservative. He's demonstrated that in his campaign, he can beat Donald Trump. And he can win the general election against Hillary Clinton. But he needs our help. And that means I need your help. Please go to our website at Tea Party Patriot Citizens Fund, or go to our booth and join us to make calls to get targeted voters out in upcoming primary elections. We're about to move into the winner-take-all states, and that's where the nomination will be decided. So if you're looking to make a difference, volunteer to help and nominate a true conservative and someone who loves the Constitution. Join us to do this. Our country is great because of her people and because of our Constitution. In Ted Cruz, we have a man who understands that, who respects that, who will lead us into the future, guided by the time-tested principles established at our founding. Most importantly, he understands that our rights flow from our Creator, not our government. He understands that means the government is meant to be a servant of the people, not the other way around. Ted Cruz is not going to back down from standing for our freedom. Neither will I, and I hope neither will you. Thank you very much.